morning, fellow humans. I am now on my second infamous green cup of coffee. I'm actually having this one completely black because I loaded the last one with pure wild unfiltered honey and coconut oil, which are both loaded with fantastic things for the human body. I only use stevia sweetener in my house. I do not use anything that's man-made with any kind of chemicals as far as sweetener goes. And when it comes to salt, it's only sea salt. Pure ground. Don't use any of it processed. The only processing involved is breaking it down from a larger size into granules that can be used in food. I have a tendency to use pink, and it has a subtlety that you can get quite a bit of pink or regular sea salt to food and not have it be harmful like iodized salt is. Iodized salt is nasty shit. If I go to a restaurant, I will not use it unless I have no alternative for whatever food I'm eating, and hopefully if I go to a restaurant, it's going to be pretty decent to not have to have that. Overall, I'm trying not to have as much sodium and processed products being put into my body. Because, I used to have the theory that the preservatives would keep me preserved in my grave for hundreds of years. And irregardless, when you die, it don't matter how much preservative you have in you, you're going to decompose. That's just the way that nature works. And I kind of want to live for a while. So, I traditionally have not taken care of my body. I have abused myself. And my body has not been a temple. My body has been a freaking strip joint, basically. Booze, drugs, lack of sleep, sadistically massive amounts of sex has gone on in my life. All the kinds of abuses you could think of. I'm really surprised with the amount of time I've been with women, married and not, that my shit hasn't fallen off. I'm really impressed with the fact that I don't have a disease and never have. One that cannot be cured. I have had a couple of scares that I've gotten shots for, regardless if they actually were negative tests or not, just to make sure, because sometimes tests are wrong. But I've never actually been diagnosed with an incurable STD or an STD at all. I got diagnosed falsely for HSV2, which is actually a really common thing for humans to have these days. Type 1 almost everybody has. But it ended up being a false positive. I went back to the same lab like 6 years after the first diagnosis. And they said, yeah, our tests back then were not very conclusive. I'm like, well, then why did you run them? You should have perfected your tests before you started doing them. But anyway, because of these things that I've done to myself, and because of the irreparable damage that I've done, it's in my best interest to do as good as I can to it now. And I'm going to say that back when I was like 20, 21-ish, I was damn near 315 pounds at that point. The heaviest I've ever been was 342, and I started Herbalife with my first wife that I was with at the time, before I did any other type of trying to be in a career. We're talking like late 90s by this point. I was really just miserable. I mean, severely miserable. Like, I couldn't lay in bed right, I couldn't sleep right, I couldn't get out of bed right. I literally had to roll out of bed and fall to my knees to get out of bed. I couldn't do it any other way because I had such a huge belly that I would literally lay sideways and it would be like a person laying to the side of me. So we started Herbalife, built a really successful business, made pretty good money, and inside of 8 months, I went from 342 to 200 flat. Now, that took a lot of severe dieting and some really good products that Herbalife had at the time, but it worked. And then I got divorced, and I started eating out of depression, started getting weight back. The business was dissolved. I have not been back to Herbalife since. And some of the reason that we dissolved the business was because we simply didn't believe in the marketing structure at the time that they used. I don't know if that's changed. If I get into another home-based business, it's not going to be through that company. It's probably going to be through Save a Brand because their products are just badass. But I have not gotten to that point yet. And I have to be employed and making pretty decent money in order to get to a point where I can do that. I am going to do it at some point again. Now I'm 45 years old. I'm around 272. The month and a half that I have not been working has taken its toll on me because while I've been looking for work and trying to be active, I haven't been nearly as active as when I was working every day. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my insides. Like, I can tell that I have to get back on track. So, my girlfriend and I, being the kind of against convention, we chose convenience a lot of times over cooking at home. We had good intentions with using the juicer, which we do use on occasion, but we need to really get back to that. So, we're starting to do that. I slow cooked yesterday, a 10-hour slow cook session. I had Mexican squash, butternut squash, white and black eggplant, a whole bunch of garlic, onion, bell pepper in a coconut, an almond milk and coconut water base. Had fresh ocean salt and basil leaves, which I actually have drying and hanging on the side of my fridge right now. All the stuff was fresh from my friend Fred's garden. Excuse me, my friend Fred and his partner Iris. They had a garden that they started together. It's a pretty nice little small scale garden, big produce. They're really adamant about doing very natural, as little interference from non-natural sources as possible. He actually ended up digging, rototilling for a new one, complete with compost and everything. And I really hope that it takes off because the garden that they already have produces some great vegetation, great produce, and it's completely organic. So I think the vested interest they have is perfect. It needs to be done more often, and the funny thing is that the government penalizes people for this in some states. That's ludicrous to me. Why would you penalize somebody for being natural? Well, that's right, because you don't make money that way. A lot of things with health have to do with making money. I swear to God, I'm not bullshitting you. The doctors and medical centers, hospitals, and the food companies that put the nasty preservatives, the FDA, they're all in the shit together. It's not hard to tell. I mean, come on. You look at a box of cereal, a typical box of regular cereal like Malt-O-Meal. Malt-O-Meal is the fucking worst, okay? You look at the list of ingredients, if you can't pronounce more than, and I'm talking food in general, if you cannot pronounce more than one word in a list, you should not touch it ever. And I have been the one that has thrown myself full force into eating like that forever. But I know I need to eat differently, and I'm making steps to change that along with my girlfriend. You look at the back of a box of Malt-O-Meal or a box of any conventional brand cereal, it looks like a list of chemicals you put in a freaking paint for a car, like some polyurethane jackass where you stick on a fucking custom car. It's phenomenally nasty. That fucking red food coloring, yellow food coloring, all those different food colorings are horrible for you. All the inoculations that they give your kids through growing up are horrible for them. And they're proving now, independently testing, proving that those type of things are what bring about our disease and bring about things like autism and ADHD, and yet they still allow it. And it's not like that all around the world, by the way. I'll give you an example. In Russia, and a lot of those Baltic and Slavic countries, but in Russia, you are not allowed to bring in anything GMO in that country. They do not allow it. Even their fast food restaurants, everything is purely organic or purely free range grown for livestock. Period. Putin will not allow anything to be unorganic that is in that country. Their local markets, people shop every day. Not once a week, not twice a month. Every day. Average. Some people do. The majority are every single day. And their markets are fantastic. And this country needs to go back to that. But unfortunately, there's very greedy people in the world, and especially in this country, that they're just not vested in it because they won't make money if things go back to the way that they used to be. But I can make the conscious choice to spend the extra money or have friends, generosity provide me, even if I have to pay for that generosity at some point, to eat better and take better care of my body. I have cut down a lot on caffeine. I've had not one Monster drink in a month. It is a game changer, people. You can't even imagine the clarity of mind I have now. We get so jacked up on that stuff, and all the stuff that's in it is too much. And it may be naturally derived, but it's really not natural because of the way that they put it together. And it's too much of all that putting it together. Too much of a good thing is never a good thing. Okay? I say that, but I have like $3,000 worth of fishing equipment. So, I have to balance things. And there's going to be more and more balance that's coming my way. So, I'm kind of pumped up about doing it. I need to get to a point where my body's feeling better between work and life before I start really religiously working out. We have a gym on my premises where the apartment I live is. I've not made use of it. I've been here for over 6 years, and I've used the gym like twice. It's time to change these things. So the mindset it's a thing. The most powerful machine in your body is the most powerful motivator is your own mind. If you don't use your mind, your body's not going to follow. It's that simple. And it's time for me to do that for myself. It's also time for my girlfriend to, so that she can head off destructiveness on her own being as well. And doing it together is much more of a reinforcement. This is a stage of my life that's much different than it used to be. Both of my daughters, one is almost 20, one's almost 18. So there's a lot there. I really have seen a lot of things change since my kids were born until now, and in my life and theirs as well. And while my daughters may not get married ever, while I may not end up having grandchildren, I still want to see them as a father and a friend for a while longer. I don't want to be gone too soon, and there's been a lot of destruction on my body I've sown myself, and I admit to it, and I own it. And I will not blame anybody for what I've done to myself. I pickled myself with drugs for years, even after my kids were born. And I was such a functional addict that nobody knew, because it was my norm. But it made my body just, it ruined me to a level that I don't know how much I'm going to get back in the end of my self-experiment, as I call it. I have a very addictive personality. I won't say that I'm addicted to things. I like letting things take a hold of me. And it's an important distinction. You know, there are some people that I believe are hardcore addicts. I'm that kind that once I take something and I know I love it, it's almost impossible to get me off. And the only two things I haven't done are crack and meth. I've done everything else in between. And I was in love with a couple of them. Cocaine, I was in love with coke. I loved it. I made love to that substance. Heroin was another one. Man. And I actually have a video on my Facebook about addiction. And I know that I'm an addictive personality. And I allow that addiction because it makes me feel good, but it's a temporary thing, and it's never a good situation. And it fucks your body up. So now, I'm in this situation with myself and my own mind and my spirit, my soul, saying, you know, you don't know anything about the universe. You know it works in mysterious ways. I've always been an energy handler. I've always been somebody that's meditated. And through that all, I've still abused myself. And now, this is kind of a damage control, taking back my own life. I still have to get rid of soda. I still have to cut back more on caffeine. You know, I have a heart murmur I've had for years that has not been debilitating. But I also have the atypical sawing a whole forest down snore that disturbs my sleep. But I get on a BiPAP and it wakes me up through half the night. So I have to get these checks and balances in order, and I have to figure myself out. Now, I know myself, but figuring myself out is a completely different thing. You can know yourself till the end of time, but if you cannot figure yourself out on how to be healthy, it's not going to happen because you're not going to motivate yourself. And nobody can motivate you to get healthy but yourself. My friend Fred tried for years. He has tried extensively to steer me in the right direction, and I've refused it because I've liked the easy way out. And I have to admit that. I have to admit that it's a thing that I've willingly done, because it is. Because if it wasn't willing, I would have fought it. And that's just the simple truth of it. You know? Anybody that I've known in my life, including my girlfriend, who I love a lot, despite her differences, has seen me in some aspect of destruction of my life. And I really just need to knock it off, and I need to rediscover myself. I love natural things like fruits and vegetables, but I never implement them. I used to eat salads like they were going out of style. And I felt so much better, even at a big weight. I felt so much better because I had good things going through me. I just ate too much of them, you know? So, it's going to be one hell of a journey, I think. I'm not afraid of the journey. I've always been, however, afraid of my own potential, if people can understand that. I've made and spent so much income, and I have nothing to show for it. In a way of me benefiting society, as I would say. I have some material things, not a whole bunch. You know, there are things that are material by nature, but I want for a means to an end, so to speak, like a bass boat, because I have a love of fishing, and it's not an all-consuming thing, but it's fairly close, and I would like to have a boat at some point, but it's a like. It's not a need, it's a like. So those distinctions of what I need versus what I would like have to be drawn hard line for me. I can't soft line things anymore with my own body or things that are in my life. And I know that, and I admit to it. I own up to these things now. There was a long time where I didn't own up to anything. And my friend Fred can attest to this, because he smacked my head over it mentally and physically quite often throughout a 24 plus year relationship. But I finally admit this to myself. I know that I love drugs once I touch them. I know that I love carcinogenic, fatty, processed foods, but my body does not. I know that I love that 24 ounce or 48 ounce porterhouse, but that by the time it gets to my ass, I can barely push it out because I'm not having enough fiber behind it. You know, like, I know these things, and I now admit to myself, as much as anybody else, that those are inconsistencies on my part, and there are things that I need to repair. So, it's a journey, and it's a journey for a lot of people. I'm not unique in that respect. I know I'm not. And I hope that this is something that people can see on YouTube and social media and go, hey, you know, this guy is finally realizing this for himself, and maybe I need to. And that's kind of why I made this message this morning. Well, besides the fact that I want to show off my cool green cup that's holding yummy fluid in it. Man, I love coffee, even if it's black. I don't know. There's just something about the main bean that really pleases me, but I still need to cut down on it.